Valley in Horace. I'm a co-security lead there with one other guy. When they asked me to be lead, I told them, yeah, but I'm doing the admin stuff. You'll have to find somebody else. So that's why we're co-leads. I was a medic in the Army for a little bit. After doing that, I started my police career in Memphis, Tennessee. I policed the most violent neighborhood in America for several years, had a lot of fun, and then moved to West Fargo and came to an immediate stop in my career because nothing happens in the state of North Dakota. And now I own The Range and Tea Party Solutions. The Range is a virtual shooting range. There's no live ammo. Tea Party Solutions is our training arm, so same business, just two different branches. Through that training arm, we do a lot of different training, so stop the bleed, TACMED, firearm stuff, church security being one of them. This today is not a sales pitch in any way, shape, or form, here because this needs to get taught. It's not done right. And frankly, a lot of churches are paying a whole lot of money to have people come in and sell them snake oil. So any questions you guys have during or after, big boy rules, just ask, don't raise your hands. If you raise your hand, I probably won't call on you, so just ask, all right? We'll do this real quick, so if you want to look at your packet that you have here, this self-assessment on the left-hand side, that's going to be what we go over. We're going to hit a couple things before that, though. So right behind it is this church security class. That is my full curriculum that I travel around and teach churches right there from beginning to end. You guys have it. I give you guys this because what happens is these guys who go through all these NRA or USCCA courses, they come in and they say, hey, I want to come teach your church security how to shoot like John Wick, and you can be the next Navy SEALs. Also, the problem with that is if you look through this curriculum, there's a whole lot of stuff that are missed. So predators inside the church, theft and vandalism, domestic violence stuff. I am a firm believer that you need to prepare for every possibility. Possibility we could have a zombie apocalypse right now. The Soviets could invade or a meteor could hit the building. Probably not super worth our time to prepare for those, though. What the church does need to prepare for is the probability. So probability is not that you're going to have an active shooter, active killer event at your church. It's a possibility that we need to be ready for, but it's not a probability. Probability is there currently is or there has been in the past a child sexual predator at your church. Probability is the violent encounter you're going to face is a domestic violence situation. Those are the probabilities that I frequently see missed with security teams and not addressed, and that's what we go over. So if you look through this, if you take this to your church and say, hey, this is the stuff, if I can turn the page, this is the stuff that we need, have anybody come in. If you have officers in your church, more than likely they can teach most of this stuff, but make sure all this stuff is getting hit, all right? Now, if you look over to the right side, this page, this right here, this was put out by the FBI not too long ago. This is common symbols that you'll see on child sexual predators. You would be amazed and disgusted at the same time how in your face they can be. These are not everything. Just because they don't have one of these symbols doesn't mean that they're not a child predator. That being said, if you see one of these, it's going to be worth an investigation, going to be worth looking into. Obviously you see somebody wearing a necklace like this in your children's ministry, there needs to be a conversation had at that point. All right? So take these, study these. If you look them up, just Google, like FBI child predator symbols. These will actually be in color. The colors are real simple. It's either light blue or pink or a mixture of both. But that's something to look at. This next page, this is was written up by Michael Anderson here with Black Hat Handgun in the Fargo area. Also a local pastor there and firearms instructor. This is a complete rundown of North Dakota constitutional carry laws. Super good to know. That being said, anybody in the church that carries still needs to be licensed under the state. It's not necessarily a legal thing, it's a liability thing, and we'll get into that. But this is really good to have on hand. The next little bit on the right-hand side is an incident report that was written up. It's like 5 pages, something like that. Some slides you can use blank. If you guys want to take this home, make copies of it, feel free. It's not copyrighted. You can have all of it. It's just good to know that this entire class, we can talk about church security for a month and barely scratch the surface of it. But it's just about getting you in the mindset. Just about getting you in the mindset of it. If you have the right mindset going into church, you'll realize just how easy church security is at that point. Once you're in the mindset, you'll start picking up things that you haven't before. You don't need to have experience as a street cop to see that somebody's carrying a gun. That's pretty obvious stuff once you really know what to look for and once you actually are looking for those things. All right, so the best way I figured to do this is to go through this self-security security assessment here. We'll go through the questions and I'll just kind of explain them as they go through. If you want to write and take notes, feel free. You don't have to. So first off, do you have a security team? Do you have a medical team at your church? Again, probability. Security team, cool. Everybody needs one. It is our right or our duty as leaders in the church to ensure that it is a safe environment for everyone that comes through that door. It is, if you want to peel back the history of it, it's your duty as an American to make sure that it has freedom of religion, safe from any kind of persecution. So every church needs a security team. Now, that's going to look different for everybody. At Harvest Valley, we're meeting inside of a school. So I'm severely restricted with what our security team can do. If you're meeting inside of a house or you have a big building like this, it's all going to look different. There's no right answer, but there's a whole lot of wrong answers for it, all right? Medical team, probability. Again, more than likely, before you have a security issue, somebody's going to have a heart attack during service. So do you have medical teams on standby? At Harvest Valley, what we're enacting is, so basically everybody that has a medical certification of EMT or above has let me know who they are. When they come through the door, they're not scheduled to work certain services because they're throughout the church. When they come through the door, they find whoever's on our security team, say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm on the medical team, I'll be in sanctuary today. I'm so-and-so, I'm on the medical team, I'll be in children's church today. And then we have this cool little thing we haven't rolled out yet. I don't even know if you know about it. So a little blue line that goes at the top of the projector screen, and that's basically the bat signal for the medical team. If that blue line pops up, that code blue, that means for the medical team to get up, go find whoever's on the safety team and find where that medical event is happening. The medical team is very important because as a safety team member, I need to make sure we're getting first responders in there, we're ushering people out of the whatever area it's happening in. I can't be doing CPR and doing that at the same time. So the medical team will take care of that while the safety team is doing everything else on the back end. Make sense? Yeah. All right. Pretty simple stuff. Our background checks conducted on safety team, even if they say, oh, I'm a police officer, do a background check on them. Background checks done on safety team, church staff members, and kids ministry. Again, child predators are everywhere. You'd be surprised how many people will sign up for a background check because they don't actually think you're going to do one or not do a good one, and they have a history of being a child predator. All right, make sure background checks are done. Make sure you're doing quality background checks. There's a lot of church software out there that you can sign up for. You can do background checks and pay this monthly fee, and all they're doing is getting on the state website to see if you have any active warrants. And it actually does nothing. You're paying for absolutely nothing. If you want really in-depth background checks, call a local private investigator. I've got some that I work with. If you need them, we can get you connected with those. But don't just sign up for, when you type in Google church background checks, don't just sign up for the first thing. Make sure you vet the service that you're using. Fire extinguishers, AED, Narcans. Does everybody know what Narcan is? Any questions? Okay. Make sure that they're in the church. People know how to use them. People know where they are, that they are clearly marked. Now, the one on there, trauma kits. That is just as important as CPR. We're trying to get a law change to where you have to have CPR in every building. Got to have a trauma kit in every building. Harvest Valley, we keep ours in the children's ministry locker. Sorry, brain fart. We keep ours in the children's ministry locker. Now, what those trauma kits are, that is tourniquet, chest seal, wound packing material. So stuff, should a active event happen, that it's to treat those injuries. And now, on the flip side of that, you have to have people trained in the church. All your, and we'll hit this a little bit later, all of your security teams should have stop the bleed, TAC meds, some kind of training like that, that they've gone through as part of the orientation. Because should something happen, that's who everybody is looking at. Whoever's on the security team, you are duty bound to act, and you are duty bound to make sure that you do whatever you can to save somebody's life. Does your facility have lockdown points? So if you look around here, this is the children's area, right?
Yes, sir.
If you look around here, can these doors be locked down? That doesn't just simply mean a push bar. You know, a lot of churches have where you can hit a button and lock down certain areas. I work with the school, helping them do private security stuff. They can lock down separate corridors inside of the school to contain any threat. Can the doors be locked from the inside or the outside or both? Can they be barricaded? That door right there, if you turn around and look at it, that's a fairly secure door. You're not going to kick your way through that door. You're going to have to use a pry tool. That door on the outside, however, is all glass. So if I lock that door, you can break that glass and you can just hit the push bar and be right in. So it's all stuff that you need to be looking at. Shatterproof film on the window. So that window, more than likely you could pick up some of the big rocks out there and shatter that window with no problem. It may take you 1-2 hits, but more than likely you could. Now the shatterproof film isn't about making the place impenetrable. The shatterproof film is just about slowing somebody down. Most active killer events are over within 6 minutes. So all it is about slowing somebody down. That's what you're looking for. And then also there's a safety aspect of just not having shards of glass go everywhere. Shatterproof film, so you can buy the shatterproof windows. You can buy windows with the film already on there. You can go on Amazon and buy shatterproof film. That's what I did for my gun store for $100. For a giant roll of it, $100, get shatterproof film, and you put it on there, a little soap and water, slide it on there just like you would a film cover. So it's a very easy investment, very cheap investment that you don't have to spend a lot of time on, and it greatly increases safety. Can the kids areas be viewed from outside? If everybody wants to look out that window, how many places could a pedophile sit and take pictures through this window? Because that's what they're looking for. Now, all they want is easy access, easy viewing. So the nice thing with these windows is they have this blind right here. I know sunlight's nice to have, but now people can't take pictures of your kids. A lot of churches have a bad habit of making sure their kids ministry is front and center in the church. So when you drive by on the main road, you see this kid place. Like, oh, that's great, that's kid friendly. Is it kid safe? Now, let's make sure it's kid safe. Is there fencing around your kids area? 1, can the kids walk off? 2, can somebody come in and walk off with a kid? And once again, they're on a playground. Can they have pictures taken of them while they're there? That's what all of that first page is. All right, now armed team. Armed teams. Does the church have an official stance on concealed carry? This is where it gets really tricky. Do you allow concealed carry? Do you not? Do you address it? Do you let it be? The fact of the matter is, anybody inside that church takes a shot with a weapon, the church can be held liable for that. And we don't, as a church, you don't want to sit there and worry about minimizing your liability, but the fact of the matter is you have to, because one simple lawsuit will shut the church down permanently. So, do you have an official stance on concealed carry? I highly recommend as a church that you put an official stance out there. What me personally I would recommend is that we respect your Second Amendment right, we support your Second Amendment right, we want you to carry, but if you're going to carry, you go through our church class, because then we know that you are at a minimum standard. I own a gun store, I own a range, I teach a lot of classes. I have a lot of people who come in and they have taken classes with really bad instructors, or they haven't taken classes because North Dakota is a constitutional carry state, and they strap a gun to their hip every day and they've never actually pulled that gun from the holster before. That's a problem. Yeah. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that you dictate what kind of guns they can still carry. Your church security team, we're going to dictate that a whole lot. Constitutional carry, though, I always err on the side of it is a constitutional right, so I'm not going to impede that. But as a church member, you should respect the church's wishes to make sure that you can shoot adequately should that shot have to be taken. Now, does the security team have a uniform? I'm not saying you need to be in a bright orange safety cone walking around the church, because there is a big argument for that making it more of a target, and that's a very valid argument. That being said, there does need to be some kind of uniformity. One, so your church can recognize who's there and then they're easy to spot. You're not just walking around the hallways, where's Bill at? You know, nobody knows where Bill is, just so it's easy to spot. Harvest Valley, what color would you call that? Like crimson? Maroon? Crimson, yeah. So it's a deep crimson. It's actually pretty nice looking. We were going to go with peach initially. Really glad we didn't. Peach isn't my color. But we have really deep crimson hoodies and shirts that provided for the security team. Now, what that does is 2 things. 1, everybody on staff, everybody in church theoretically knows that's a safety team member. I'm going to go get that person should something happen. 2, first responders. So as soon as we got those shirts, I called the Red River Regional Dispatch Center, who dispatches all the first responders, and I said, hey, so you know we have a safety team at the church, or security team, and every one of those members has on a crimson shirt. So now, in theory, something happens, I call 911, they start dispatching officers and other first responders to the church. They say, hey, such and such is happening at such and such a location, and then an alert's gonna pop up on their screen that says, oh, safety team members wear red shirts. And then they're gonna tell the officers, hey, safety team members wear red shirts. What this means is down, if you have an armed security team and a first responder walks in because there's an active event and somebody's holding a gun, that person's going to get shot. So ideally, what that means is that dispatcher will see that safety team members wear red shirts. They will tell the officers safety team members wear red shirts. The officer would make entries into the building, sees a guy holding a gun, but he's wearing a red shirt, and he doesn't get shot. Does that make sense? Yeah. That's why I highly recommend uniforms. A lot of churches, they just want everybody in a suit just to look nice. It's dangerous. It's well documented the dangers of concealed carry when first responders come. Aurora, Colorado, 2 years ago, a gentleman executed an officer in the middle of the street. A concealed carrier then executed that individual. Responding officer shot that guy, shot the good guy. Why? Because he was standing over a cop with a gun. The responding officer was not wrong. He had no information. And I guarantee you that responding officer has not got a full night's sleep since that happened. But the problem is it's an unfortunate event, and that's just part of carrying a gun on you that you have to be prepared for. So does the church have secondary insurance to cover carry? So I would imagine most churches probably go through Brotherhood Mutual. That's the big one. Brotherhood Mutual does cover safety teams. That being said, they don't do that great of a job of covering liability. I'm sure a lot of you guys, at least if you conceal carry, you've heard of the concealed carry insurance that's out there. There's a lot, USCCA, Delta, FLP, there's a lot of stuff out there. Now what that stuff does is it covers you civilly, some of it covers you criminally, some of them they're just stealing your money, so you really got to dig into them. But what that does is it's going to cover somebody in the event that lethal force is used. Some of them will cover in the event that any kind of force is used. I would highly recommend looking into that. A big one is, it's on that last page, what is it? Attorneys on retainer. So a problem with insurance is if a criminal act is found to happen, then they have an out of their insurance policy. If you shoot somebody, even at the church, there's a very high likelihood you will get charged with some kind of crime. So now that insurance company has its out. Attorneys on retainer is not an insurance company. They are simply attorneys that are going to show up and fight for you. So that's something that, as a church, I believe you should be offering to you. If you say, hey, we want you to carry, we want you to show up every day and protect us, you should probably protect them on the back end.
That's good. That's good.
Now, as far as when I said that we will dictate what kind of guns your security team carries. Is there a policy in place for weapons, holster, ammo, and carry types? So, you have a safety team. That safety team is old Larry over there that carries a 500 Smith & Wesson, and he's been shooting since, the Israelites were wandering the desert. Probably not carrying the gun that you want. So is that a gun that they can shoot confidently? You have your concealed carry pistols. Concealed carry pistols tend to be small, and you cannot take that critical. The majority of people, now I mean you have your John Wicks out there, the majority of people cannot take that critical shot with a small pocket pistol. They're great because you can have them in your pocket, you can conceal them well. That being said, you want a full-size pistol. So everybody familiar with the Glock 19 for the most part. Has anybody seen any movie ever? That's probably the gun that's in it. Our safety team at Harvest Valley will only carry guns about a Glock 19 size. Why? Because they can confidently take that shot. Now you have magazine capacity. Look at what's the big shooting that just happened in Texas? Is it Lake Park? Lakewood?
Oh yeah, Lakewood.
Thank you. The Lakewood shooting. They exchanged quite a bit of fire with that lady that walked into the church. So if you have a pocket pistol that only has 5 rounds in it and you don't have a spare mag on you, what good are you at that point? You're just a bullet sponge. I hope you come through it, right? So make sure you have something with a lot of magazine capacity. Holsters. Holsters is a big issue. Big issue. So you can go to Walmart, you can buy an Uncle Mike's nylon holster, you can strap that thing to your hip, and that gun's gonna fall out if you jump. Part of the safety team is being able to put hands on somebody. Something we like to look over, everybody wants a gun, but guns make every situation 10 times worse. So maybe it's better that I just put my hands on you and I take you outside of this building. So holsters, you want a holster that's made of Kydex that has positive retention. I'm not saying that you have to have a duty rated police holster that's got the thumb lock on there that they can't snatch it out of. No, a concealed carry holster that you can jump around with, that if somebody bumps it, it's probably not going to fall out. If you have a nice leather holster that your granddad handed down to you, I bet it's a beautiful holster, but it's not gonna do the job right, all right? Make sure you have a good Kydex holster. Now, ammo selection. Ammo selection's a big thing. Hollow points, FMJs, jacketed hollow points. We can go on and on. I would highly suggest the church mandate this is the round that you carry. Hornady, critical duty, critical defense is just some of the best ammo on the market. They make it in 940, 45. Another thing is going to be caliber selection. Do you want somebody carrying a 380, a 22, a 22 mag? Small calibers that, especially during the winter, are not going to do anything. During the winter up here, somebody's in a heavy Carhartt jacket with a hoodie underneath that and some long underwear underneath that. A 22 long is not going to touch them. A 380 more than likely is not going to touch them. So we want to make sure that they're carrying good ammo. You also want to make sure that they're not carrying ammo that's going to over penetrate and then hit little Timmy that's standing behind that guy, okay? So we got to make sure there's a whole lot that goes into this, because again, every single round that is fired, that person is responsible for, the church is responsible for, and we have to make sure that those are accounted for. And then carry types. You got your guys that are going to want to carry on the hip and act like John Wayne. You got your guys that are going to want to carry the small and back. Neither one of those are viable. Now, if you have on a suit jacket, but let's remember our uniform policy, if you have on a suit jacket, maybe then that becomes viable carrying on the hip. It's something that there's, again, not a right answer. In my opinion, there's a whole lot of wrong answers with it. So you got to work out what's going to be the best carry method. You also have people that may have limitations. I don't have full range of motion on one of my shoulders, so I couldn't carry back here on my strong side. So just stuff that you have to work through. Find a very reputable firearms trainer. The farmer that owns 180 acres and has been shooting since he was born might not be the best source. Find a reputable firearms instructor. Find somebody that has been there, done that. If you have to bring somebody in from a distance, bring somebody in. There's plenty of us that are more than happy to come help out. Official shooting qualification. Go to your local police department, ask them for a copy of their shooting qualification, and that should be your shooting qualification that your security team uses. Because when you go to court, and you will go to court if a shooting happens, there will be a civil trial afterwards. You can say, nope, my guys were trained, and they were trained to the exact same standard that our police department uses. There's not much argument on it at that point. Now, I would sit there, being in law enforcement for a little while, some shooting qualifications are better than others. So if you look at it and you think, that's pretty weak, Google the FBI shooting qualification, use the FBI's. The FBI is known to have bad shots, so it's not that hard to pass, all right? Do they hold valid concealed carry license? Do you have to have a valid concealed carry license in the state of North Dakota? No, you do not. At a church, what is the rules for people to carry in a church? It just has to be dictated by the pastor to carry in the church. Now, that being said, should you have the valid concealed carry license? Yes. All about civil liability. All about being able to say, I was trained to a standard. I knew the laws. I shot this proficiently. That round that accidentally hit over there, it was a mistake. I was trained. It's all about liability for the person taking the shot and for the church itself. There are plenty of firearms instructors that will come in and do a concealed carry permit just for your class. That sheet I handed you, Black Hat Handgun, he is a pastor, and he will more than gladly come to your church and do a full concealed carry class for everybody. That guy back there had him come in and do a full one for his church. That's my dad, in case y'all didn't figure out. He's a lot more gray than I am. All right, has your team been through any de-escalation training? So, like I said earlier, Adding a gun to any conflict escalates it. Now, sometimes, so law enforcement, you have your force continuum. If they're here, you're gonna come here and squash it. So there may be times that your only option is to come in with a gun to end that threat. That being said, if somebody's just mouthy, if somebody's just violent, your domestic violence situation that he showed up to the church and now he's getting a little aggressive, that doesn't mean you brandish your firearm, that doesn't mean you show it. Let's take some de-escalation training. Let's learn how to talk to people. We are at a church after all. Let's learn how to talk. Let's learn how to get people off that cliff. The main goal is for me to take the person from right here to right there on the sidewalk. Because once they're on that sidewalk, we lock the doors behind them. We call the police, say this guy's trespassed. We'll never have him come back here again. And if he does come back here again, he's arrested and discharged. So de-escalation, just take them from here to right here. That's all we're looking for. Now, I mean, if you want to, as a church, minister to them afterwards, that's something that the leadership is going to have to figure out. As a security team, there has to be a red line that is crossed where that person's asked to leave the church and no longer come back. Their well-being cannot be a threat to other people, and that sometimes you just have to cut the loose weight on that. Has your team been through Stop the Bleed or TACMED? So any firearms class I teach at any level, I don't start with firearms. I start with the 15-minute tourniquet class. Every single one. One, it's because I'm afraid they may shoot me and I want to make sure they can save me. But two, it's because anybody that carries a gun needs to know how to fix what damage they just did. Tourniquets are the single biggest factor. Stop the Bleed was started out of the Combat Lifesaver course during the wars on terror and stuff, because the majority of deaths happen due to treatable, life-threatening bleeding. And so tourniquets, that's all it is. Now, Stop the Bleed goes into a little bit more. It's tourniquets and wound packing. I would highly suggest your security team go through a TACMED class. That's going to be something that is tourniquets, wound packing, chest seals, and then it's also triage, casualty triage. So it's going to be a very hard thing to say that that person may not be worth working on, but we have 10 people that are victims right now, and we have to choose which ones are going to have the best outcome. That's a very, very hard skill to learn, especially in a church setting. It's usually about a 4-hour class, depends on who's teaching it. Invaluable. It's absolutely invaluable. But now you have that training. How do you back up that training? You back up that training by your church having those trauma kits that we talked about earlier. See, it's all connected, so it comes full circle.
That's good.
Has your church been through CPR AED? Remember, again, full circle. What's more likely to happen? That somebody's going to have a heart attack in service.
Yeah.
Now, I grew up in church. There's been several times that we've had an emergency or a medical emergency happen at church. I've never drawn a firearm at church before. So make sure CPR, AED's knocked out, make sure they have Narcan. Narcan's not just for the tweaker that may come in off the street. Narcan's also because people are given prescriptions that they just may be unaware of. And it can now, Narcan only affects opioids, it's only for an opioid overdose, but there's other things to take into consideration than just the drug user who may walk in that door. Now, 2 months ago, we had 2 drug users walk in the door at Harvest Valley during service, just looking for free stuff. I love our associate pastor, Peter. I'm like, hey, Peter, you should go talk to those guys. No, that's what he's great for. De-escalation. Now, is there regularly scheduled training? This is a big one. So you onboard your security team. Well, there should be an onboarding process for your security team. But what upkeep is there? You know, shooting is a perishable skill. Putting on tourniquets, if you only ever done it once in your life, and 2 years from then you have to do it, it's going to be perishable. You're not going to remember things. So make sure that there are minimum standards for your security team. There is a common myth among all things that you cannot fire volunteers. And I hate that myth more than anything. I will fire a volunteer faster than anything. If you feel that you are led to be on the team, that's where you need to serve, that's where you best serve your church and its people, and put forth the effort and get to that training, because everything there is for the betterment of you, the church, to limit liability and limit loss of life. Now, training. Security team members are very limited. Every church has greeters at the door, do they not? Those are the single best people that need to go through security training. So Harvest Valley, they have a cool resource that a lot of churches don't. That's me. And my range, we host monthly security trainings at the range. Now, that's not just for security. I've opened that up to the entire church. Anybody can show up to that training. Last month, we did threat identification. So being able to look at somebody walking through the building and saying, we need to watch that guy, we need to kick that guy out, or we need to put hands on that guy immediately. The greeters are the first ones there. I'm in the middle of the church. I don't see anything coming in the door, but those greeters, they're standing there at that door and they see them coming in. You know, so make sure, don't just have your security team go through these trainings. Open it up to the entire church. Not only that, then it's a ministry and outreach, and you get to know people. I don't give off the nicest demeanor when I'm standing there in the corner looking like a creeper, you know, watching people. People get to know me that way. You know, it's a great way to introduce people. Now, are there designated areas of coverage and response? That's something you guys will have to work out. Again, every church is different. Should there be somebody standing at that corner, at that door? Should there be somebody standing in the kids area? Something as a church you have to work out. If nobody is security minded, again, you can call the local police department and say, hey, come do a walkthrough and tell me what you guys think. Some police are better than others, just know that, all right? But you can also pay for somebody to come in and do these things. It is worth the investment that the church would have. Now, is there designated team leaders? So is your security team just Larry's usually their first service, Bob comes on Wednesday nights, and you know, that guy, we think he has a gun. Or are there actual leaders that can put things together, that can manage the training hours, that can maintain the certificates? Because if you're going through these classes as a way to limit liability, but you're not keeping certificates on file, you just lost all liability and it's completely worthless. So make sure that those team members have a file somewhere in the church and they have their Stop the Bleed certificate. The church has their concealed carry stuff on file. They keep their shooting scores on file.
Sorry, I'll raise my hand if I can say something.
I'm not gonna call on you if you do.
Okay, I'm not. So we just had a situation, so we had our insurance, rental insurance, doesn't have a name, but they came and did a walk through the church, up in Wapton City, and we have something called a guardian team, which is what we call our security team, it's called the guardian team. Anyway, we just went earlier last year, to something called Strategos. It's just a faith-based, kind of like what you do.
I think I'm familiar with it.
Out of Missouri. And anyway, so they came up, we went through their training, and they offer you the full certified because they do it so often, it's established. And so that insurance adjuster came to me, that oversees it, and said, hey, you know, does everybody in your team have this particular training and a certificate to just confirm this? And so thankfully they did,